Hi everybody, it's PJ from Wisconsin Airgunners. I firmly believe that every group tells a story. And at long last, I am able to tell you the story about this group. This particular group isn't that old. I just shot it earlier this week actually. But for about the last, 6 or 8 months, I've been involved in a project that I really haven't been able to talk about. And so you might say I have a lot to get off my chest, but let's just take a look at the shooting of this group. So here on the bench with me today is a 2025 Spec Red Panda in 30 cal. This is the rifle that I shot that group with. This is just an ordinary rifle off the stack of rifles that we are preparing to head out to customers. My personal Red Panda is actually sitting on a shelf over there. But for this video, we're going to talk about a stock gun. Because if you're going to order one, this is the one well, not this one, but like you're going to get a random one off the shelf. And I think in fairness to what is in fact a review video, I think it's right for me to show you what you can expect to get, not what I'm shooting, which just looks different. I've had the rails Cerakoted, stuff like that. Let's get the disclosure part out of the way. Almost 2 years ago, I was given an opportunity as I was looking at my retirement from teaching in law enforcement to come down here to Florida and work for Donnie in his family of companies, or the umbrella of companies, which includes Donnie FL and Saber Tactical. And he was going to be introducing a new brand of airguns, Karma Airguns. And the first rifle that was coming was the Red Panda. And when we talked about it, all I heard was amazing stuff. And when I got down here, Donnie said, we have one set aside for you. It was a pre-production rifle. And in the world of making air guns, designs and specifications are set up, and then some rifles, a small batch is made, and then that batch goes out to the company that's going to introduce or sell the gun, and you make some decisions on what you like, what you don't like, what you're going to keep, what you want to change, and then that information goes back to the factory, and then production rifles come out. So those first couple of competitions with pre-production air guns, there was a lot of experimentation, development going on. There were changes being made to the design, all in the interest of collecting data to arrive at a specification for the actual production rifle. So, from time to time, someone would hand me a part and say, put this in your gun and go out and see what it does. The rifle I shot at Armac that first year was just bone stock pre-production. As I went through that competition season in 2023, there were various other things that were tweaked. mostly internally, until we arrived at okay, this is what we want to send out there. And then before Rocky Mountain Airgun Challenge in 2024, we received our first production rifles, and those went then out for sale. And what we started to see was other people having success with the rifles, meaning, to me anyway, this wasn't just a fluke. This wasn't just a couple of people. This was actually really a good rifle, purpose-built for the 100-yard bench rest circuit, if you will, or competition world, whatever you want to call it. We were also working on designs for PRS shooting. So we had Red Pandas out in the wild, and we started collecting feedback from people who were out there shooting them. And a lot of that feedback was very positive. Some of that feedback showed us that there was still room to improve the platform. So going into our 2025 production rifle, we've made a number of changes to improve not just the precision, but the tunability, and I would say on and off the bench functionality. So I'm going to run through what some of those changes are. So starting out at the front, we have a barrel shroud, but it is no longer part of the air handling system. So there's air in there, obviously. There is no air from the muzzle going back into the shroud, and there is just dead air space here. We have, instead of the, I guess you'd call it kind of monolithic front tank, and that tank hung down about, I would say, between 3/4 and an inch lower than this rail system does, which from a PRS standpoint kind of caused some problems on some obstacles. So this is much neater and tighter up under the bore. It is also a much more rigid rail system for bench work. This has very little flex. It is much sturdier, and the barrel and shroud are free floated within it as opposed to being, clamped around it in any way. There are two air tubes up here. One of them is high pressure air, and the other is a 200 cc plenum. So loads of plenum space. Once we get to the inside, that's where I would say, real magic has taken place in this 2025 Spec Airgun. For the shooter, you're probably going to notice two things. One, to me, is more important than the other. Sometimes, depending on how you have the rifle tuned, the pre-production models of Red Pandas and the first batch to go out in the wild, sometimes if you tuned them, I would just say kind of not perfectly, they would have a little bit of a farty kind of sound, a little bit of like hammer bounce, which didn't help matters much with efficiency. The other thing is that the internal changes on the 2025 version, make tuning to a particular velocity of your choosing that much easier. The Red Panda has never been a particularly hard rifle to tune, and I've, over on the Donnie FL side, released a video on tuning based on the 2024 spec. I find this version to be significantly easier to tune, and basically, if you want to tune it to 884 or 925 or 965, it is simply a matter of picking an appropriate for caliber and weight of projectile regulator pressure, and then adjusting the hammer spring to where you want to be. Now, if you want to really fine tune that from those settings, you can adjust the regulator pressure and either bring up or down the hammer spring so that you get into a perfect balance point, which is going to yield the smallest extreme spread of velocity, smaller standard deviations, and improve your efficiency. And I'd imagine at some point down the road, either here on Wisconsin Airgunners or over at Donnie FL, I'll do a new tuning guide, or maybe one of our partners will come up with one, but we will get that information out. What I'll say for today is this version of the rifle is significantly easier to tune than the original production rifle was. We've also included on a current spec purchase, so if you're ordering one today, it'll have this additional bottom tank on the back, which brings the whole rifle's air handling system to about 700 cc's of air on board plus a 200 cc plenum. So lots of air on board, and you get some pretty big shot count for a competition rifle. Some pretty big shot counts. Certainly, when you set it up, even without the rear tank, if you were setting a rifle up for PRS, certainly enough rounds to get through a PRS stage without any problem whatsoever. You might ask, like, so, you know, this is the rifle that people were winning competitions with 2 years ago. You're saying you've made improvements. Like, how did you actually do that? The rifle itself is manufactured in China. We've never at Karma Airguns made any secret about that. People ask all the time. I've seen people hint on comments on my videos that we're somehow hiding where this came from. This rifle is manufactured in China to our specifications. We've worked very closely with the manufacturer to make this the best rifle possible. They have proprietary barrel technology and their own testing system. I can tell you that there are a lot of these barrels that are manufactured that don't make the cut, right? They do internal testing, which includes looking obviously at the whole inside of the barrel. They have a really cool, I don't fully understand it, but it really is, I mean, it's like something I've never heard of, way of making sure that the barrel is the same diameter all the way down from the back to the front, which before I got involved in this project, I didn't even know that was a thing. A lot of barrels don't make the grade, and they get turned into something else, but not Red Pandas. The internal stuff that we've changed, that's all our development. We did some of that development here in Florida. We have people in Utah who we work with, who are part of the project, that have worked on some of those internal changes. We have people in California who have assisted with it, folks in Wisconsin. There's really all over the place. We have a core team of people, Pennsylvania, trying not to let anyone, of course, Florida. I think I mentioned Florida. But people who've said, we should try this. We manufacture a new part, try it. Okay, that was okay, but maybe not as good as we want it to be. Let's try again. New part, test it. And what we've arrived at in 2025 is what we think internally is the best setup for this rifle to go out to competition. So if you have a 2024 spec, and to me, as somebody who represents the company both as a like YouTuber and as an employee, okay, never hid that at all. What I am glad to be able to announce today is that if you have a 2024 spec rifle, we can get you the parts to change your rifle to the 2025 spec. from a pure business standpoint, we are releasing those parts to current Karma customers at a loss. So go over to the Karma Airguns website and go to the contact us form if you're looking to get an upgrade. I don't want to call it an upgrade kit, but a 2025 spec kit. Well, in my opinion, as a person who shoots this gun, forget about what I do during the day. It's Saturday now as I'm filming, so I'm on my own time. It's an upgrade kit. But officially, get the 2025 spec kit. It's going to come with the new shroud, the new front rail, the new twin tanks, the bridge that holds them together, and then a new valve seat, valve poppet pin, a new hammer spring, and a new hammer. We've actually reduced the hammer weight, and that's part of how we've gotten easier tuning and more efficiency. So all those parts are going to come to you, and over on the Donnie FL website, or rather the Donnie FL YouTube channel, I have filmed how to do all the part swap, which it'll give you a pretty, even if you're not doing the part swap or you want to know what's the part swap going to be about, it's going to give you a pretty good idea of what's involved. It's a very linear process, and I don't think you're going to have difficulty getting it done. So, man, we have worked really hard, and we've been working for a long time behind the scenes to get this airgun ready to be released. And as I'm filming this, we are now 2 days away from like actually being able to talk publicly and show the amazing things that this airgun is capable of. I've never been part really of a product launch like this before, so I appreciate you listening to me kind of prattle on about this, because it's cool, and I've never really been able to do this before. From a like, hey, it's a review standpoint, I do want to get you guys some facts and figures in terms of like how we've set this up. So I'm going to start out by doing a trigger pull test. All right, here we go. $11 ounces. Sorry, 11.6. $12.2. $13.2. So that's, I got that centered, 12.3 as an average. So about 3/4 of a pound. Not bad at all. I find this a great trigger to shoot. I like, well, you can adjust how much first stage, how much second stage. I'm not much of a, I don't consider myself a trigger snob. I have over the years come to like a good trigger. What I personally like is I like to touch the trigger. I like there to be some take up where I can feel that I'm on the trigger. I like it to come to a firm wall, and then I like it to break. And this trigger does that. So this is a trigger that I personally like. Everybody's got their own thing. We do not have an adjustment in the trigger for the trigger weight itself. So the weight is pretty standard across, I've done this test on multiple different rifles as we've worked through and prepped them for customers and dealers. They all come out about the same. You can adjust some of the stuff to make it fit, sort of what you want. Just like, while they ship with the Saber Tactical Grip, that kind of vertical grip. You can put whatever AR compatible grip you want on the rifle, and it'll work for you. If you're going to order, currently we are shipping, this is as of February 2025, 22, 25, 30, and 35 caliber. You will see, if you're looking at dealer websites, you'll see pellet configuration and slug configuration. So I want to explain what the difference between those two are so you can make the decision that's right for you. And I hate a video where somebody is reading a spec sheet. I feel like I'm going to give myself a pass on this one because I developed the spec sheet. I just want you to know, like, if you're on the fence on something, which one should I order? The factory testing of barrels came to a conclusion that there wasn't a substantial need to develop, at this point, a slug barrel versus a pellet barrel. What it did find is that there were different twist rates that were favorable for each of the calibers. Now, that's not to say that down the line, with more testing, we might not come up with barrels at different twist rates. I don't know. We're not there yet. So I'm going to report what is shipping as of now. And I apologize, this may be just a tad boring, but some of you want this information, so I'm going to give it to you. All of this information is currently, or will be by Monday when you see this, over on the Karma Airguns website. And as we develop or get from other shooters different tunes for different projectiles, that information will be shared on the Karma Airguns website. And I'm sure there'll be discussions on various forums out there, Airgun Nation, stuff like that. But we have an interest as a company in providing you with as much information as we can about tunes that might work. So the specs I'm going to provide to you are how the guns leave our Florida warehouse, either directly to customers or to dealers. Many dealers offer, call it personalized tuning service or boutique service, whatever you want to call it. If you ordered a gun from Donnie FL, for example, we do offer custom tuning. It's an additional charge, and it requires that you have bought whatever ammo it is that we're going to tune for from us so we can do the tune. There's all kinds of people who do different tuning things. What we do here when we set up a gun is set a regulator pressure and a hammer spring pressure. And those are pressures that we have found, pressures and hammer spring combinations that we have found to shoot very well here at the factory in samples of guns. We do not, here in Florida, shoot every one of these guns, and we do not, as a base level, verify each airgun with chrono numbers. It's just not, at this point, a service we're able to offer as a relatively small company. Each barrel back at the factory has been tested for accuracy, and like I said before, those barrels that don't meet the accuracy standard are rejected outright. There's actually more ways for a barrel to get rejected from being in a Red Panda than there are ways for it to get on the gun itself. So if you are ordering a 22 caliber pellet air gun, you're going to have a 2800 psi rear regulator that lives back here. You're going to have a 1400 psi setting on the external regulator, and your hammer spring, and the hammer spring itself has a bunch of let's just call them dashes. The first one we call 1, and then there are 2 little ones, we call those 2 and 3, then there's a big one at 4, 2 little ones 5, 6, and then the last one at 7. So your hammer spring is going to be set at 2 out of 7. Should give you about 930 feet per second with a 25 grain 22 pellet. If you were to order the slug version, we open the rear regulator. So that one is open. We're going to set your reg pressure at about 2550. That's going to shoot, your hammer spring is going to be at about 5.5, and that's going to shoot a 38.6 grain slug at 983 feet per second. You're going to get about 36 shots before you hit the regulator. Now, if you compare the 22 slug and the 22 pellet version, they both show 36 shots per fill. I want you to understand why. When we reported these numbers, at least as we're reporting them today, if people get too confused, we might change things around. But how does the same air gun give you the same number of shots, much heavier slug, 38 grain to 25 grain? How do they both have 36 shots? Well, in the slug version, we've opened this regulator. And so what we're saying is before you hit the shooting regulator, pointing down here because the gauge is right below here. The actual regulator sits kind of here in the middle. But that 36 shots with the slug gun, because there is an open rear regulator, is down to your shooting regulator pressure. What we're reporting for the pellet version, or the pellet configuration, is you get 36 shots before you hit the internal regulator. If you actually shot down the whole string until you got to the shooting regulator, you're probably getting more in the line of 70 to 80 shots if you just shot through this one, which you can. And there's such a big plenum relative to the amount of power we're putting out in 22 caliber as a pellet gun. You actually get about 20 more shots shooting the plenum down. So I have shot with this tune in 22 caliber pellets. I've actually put 100 pellets through the rifle, and I want to say the extreme spread, even though it's going from, and oh, by the way, all of our tunes are set up. This gun is a 4,500 PSI fill, but just because of the realities of how we shoot here in the shop and our tank system and all that stuff, we actually only fill them to 4,000 when we develop all these numbers. So whatever numbers you see on the Karma website that are our internal testing numbers, those are based on a 4,000 PSI fill, and either down to the internal regulator if it's set, or the external if it's wide open. Hopefully that all makes some sense. You should basically expect to get more shots than we're reporting. We're not trying to stretch this and impress anybody. We know that this is a competition air gun, and you need it to shoot at the highest level of precision possible so that you can win your event, whether it's local, national, or international. Those are the kind of numbers that we're reporting because we're that passionate about this kind of shooting. All of this testing, all of the data that we're reporting, that was developed here in our facility at Florida based on parts that we have in some cases remanufactured and in other cases manufactured here, either in Florida, California, Utah. We've got people with technical engineering backgrounds. We've got people with machining backgrounds who are working with us on this project. The refinement of this has happened here, and then moving forward, we take those specifications, we communicate with our partners who are doing the factory manufacturing, who are building the gun in the factory, and then they change the manufacturing specifications to match what we demand in order, to get our level of performance. That's all work that we've done here, and it's just been so cool to be part of it. Anyway, I was talking about 22 cal pellets. I think when I was doing shot strings in 22 and pellets, I was getting 100 shots before, you know, it really kind of nosedived because the plenum just didn't have enough juice anymore. But I think the maximum spread was somewhere in the 20 to 30 range. And that's going through the rear regulator, you know, falling off that regulator, falling off the shooting regulator, and then just shooting plenum air down. So I wanted you to know that little bit about what when you see those charts, and if it doesn't quite make sense to you, a little bit of an explanation as to how that chart works. If you look at the 25 cal, your internal reg is going to be set somewhere between 26 and 2800. Your shooting reg is probably going to be at about 1500, and your hammer spring is going to be at like 1, and that'll shoot a 33.9 grain pellet at about 904 feet per second. We're looking at about 48 shots per fill. If you get the slug configuration, the rear reg is going to be wide open. Your shooting reg is going to be at 2700 psi. You're going to be at almost 5 on the hammer spring, and that 49 grain slug is going to be flying at around 970 feet per second. Over 100 foot-pounds of energy for 24 shots in 25. The 30 cal, which this rifle is, and how this one's tuned, the rear reg is set at about 2800. The external reg is right around 2100. We're at about 2.5 on the hammer spring. It's shooting around 937, I think was the average we got in testing, which is almost 100 foot-pounds of energy. And 26 shots before you hit that rear regulator. And then, you know, if you're just shooting, you can shoot well below that. But we look at, you know, that's like 2 full magazines before you have to do anything. And even when I shot it down to the front reg pressure, I think I was getting closer to 36 or 40 shots, but you know, before I hit this one. When we set up a 30 cal for slugs, we open the rear regulator. The external regulator is set at about the same as the pellet version, but that hammer spring gets wound up to about 4.5, and that pushes a 51 grain slug at about 975 feet per second. So you're over 100 foot-pounds of energy, and we were getting 40 shots on that fill. If you go up to the 35 cal, in both pellet and slug configuration, we open the rear regulator. We also use in 35 cal a 90 grain hammer instead of the 70 grain hammer. For the pellet version, if we're setting it up to shoot the 81 grain AEA pellets, we're at 2100 psi in the reg, and the hammer spring's at about 3 out of 7. That's about 30 shots per fill. We up the reg pressure for the slug version. I did my testing with Zan 81 grain slugs in 35 cal. We put the reg at 2800, the hammer spring at about 5.5, and that was giving us about 16 shots at 941 feet per second. That's with an 81 grain slug. So there will be eventually other tunes reported out on the website. Again, some of those will be tunes that we develop here, you know, in Florida, or with our shooters in California or Utah. We'll try our best to give you environmental data for all the tune development stuff we put on the website, just because it's easy to report for you. Understand that, you know, environmental factors do affect not just air guns. You know, all projectiles flying through the air are impacted or affected by environmental conditions. So the one other thing that you'll see if you're looking at pictures online that is different between the 2025 spec that will be shipping out, well, has already shipped out to dealers and will be shipping out to people starting on Monday this week. But you'll also see the inclusion of the secondary lower rear tank, and eventually we don't have them in just yet, but eventually for people who are current customers who don't have that, we will have those available for sale. So I started this video by talking about groups having stories. There's a lot of work and a lot of people are involved behind the scenes in developing and bringing an air gun like this to market. Really any air gun of any quality level, precision level, whatever. There's a bunch of people who are involved. Very rarely just one person doing the whole thing. So our media team was working super hard over the last couple of weeks doing their stuff, which I hope you've seen and enjoyed. But all of a sudden they called me, I think it was Wednesday morning, and said, you know what, we don't have any groups. Like, we don't have any groups on film. What do you think? Can you go do something? So I went out to the outdoor range, and it was a beautiful morning. Sun was shining, perfect blue sky day. I walked out of the warehouse, loading the car up, got called back in to answer a few calls and then do a couple of emails. When I went back out to get in the car to go out to shoot, the wind had gone from 2 to 4 to 10 miles. Here's the chart from my app. We go from nothing to, hey, it's a 10-mile-an-hour wind and it's gusting to 18. I got out to the range and it's like RMAC conditions where it's a tailwind, which it just for shooting groups, it just makes it tough. So I set everything up, and I knew I really wanted to bring this story to you folks. So the first group I set up was for me. I had done a rough zero, but I didn't want to shoot out the bullseye I didn't want to touch the bullseye on the target. So I had it set so it was just hitting up and a little bit over. Aired up the gun, loaded a magazine, well, let me show you the group. All right, everybody, for this segment, I have grabbed a totally off-the-shelf Red Panda. This is one we just built up, and just gonna shoot a little group, show you some chronograph. I've got a camera downrange to record the results. We are at 50 yards outdoors. Fair amount of wind going on right now. It is 10 miles an hour from that way. It's a little bit switchy, and it's gusting to, I think, 18 is what the weather app says. So let's see. Now that I moved the gun, I got to realign it. Boy, looking down through the scope, that action camera is brave. All right, AEA 50 grain pellets, and get this turned back on and you'll see the speed. Well, that looks pretty good from this end, but need to go down there and check the target. So let's go have a look. See how close I can get you in there to see that. Tell you what, I'll take a picture of it and oh, let me do this. Trying to make tripods work together. So 5-shot string, low of 940, high of 943, average 942, spread of 3, average BC 0.076, standard deviation of 1.1. But that doesn't mean anything if it doesn't look good downrange. So walk with me for 50 yards and we'll take a peek at the target. All right, 5 shots right there. Solid shots. Very happy. I'll get you some analysis on that. I'll put it right here. So that was a freshly set up, it was this gun, freshly set up. If I wouldn't have taken it out into the wild to do that test filming, it would have been a gun that would have gone back in the case and been ready to ship off to a dealer or a customer. I did do just a little bit of fine tuning when I got out to the range. So I took it from the base tune, and within about a magazine and a half, I had it shooting, and I say that a magazine and a half. It was a little bit of adjustment on, this is your hammer spring adjuster. So as I'm sitting on the bench as a right-handed shooter, when I turn it away from me, that reduces hammer spring. When I turn it towards me, that increases hammer spring. So I had the chronograph out. I took a couple of shots. I saw where it was sitting. I made a couple of adjustments. In this case, I wound up turning the hammer spring up just a little bit to get what was really good, consistent velocity. Then I took a couple of shots to get the scope. Again, really rough zero, not how I would set it up for a hunting or competition gun, but good enough for me to film a group. I got the camera going downrange. I put the camera on me. I shot 5 shots. I'm like, that was it, right? Then my marketing team's request, we want a 5-shot group where you shoot out the bullseye. So now it's like, okay, I got wind. I want it to be the smallest group I can get, but I want it to be right on the bullseye. But once you shoot out the bullseye, you've shot out your point of aim. Guys, it's harder sometimes than you think to get this stuff on film. So I shot 2 other groups to adjust the scope and get a feel for the windage, basically like shooting sighters. And then I shot this group, which is, you saw it at the beginning of the video, but let's take a peek at it again. So that's the group, and that's the story. That entire shooting session, tuning and zeroing, is all told right there. The accuracy of the Red Panda is amazing. It is undoubtedly, for 100-yard bench rest, it is absolutely the most accurate rifle at 100 yards that I've ever shot. Most precise. Um, if I do my part, this gun has never let me down. And I'm talking about this one like it's my setup. It's not even mine. The groups that I've been talking about today, the ones that I've shot and shown you in this video, those weren't 100 yards. And I apologize if I've created any, like if you missed that somehow. These are 50-yard groups. 10 to 18 mile an hour tailwinds, not a great day for on film to showcase the potential of a rifle. There's too much in the environmental factors there to do a rifle like this justice. But it gets the job done at 100 yards. And I don't think in this video you're watching, at least this far into it, you're not watching for me to prove to you that this is a good 100-yard gun. Go look at Thane Simmons's wins. Look at the records he's set in terms of competition finals, shooting, and scores. Look how well I've done. I mean, all these things are published. I don't have to republish them here. Look how well I've done. Look at how many Red Pandas last year made finals in 100-yard bench rest competitions. There were only 100 of those in the wild last year. Look how many of those rifles made the finals. It's an amazing rifle to shoot. I'm doing this video because I want you to know a little bit about the backstory of this rifle from a what's new moving forward standpoint. I think it's going to be pretty impressive what's going to happen in the 2025 competition season. I think you're going to see really strong performance. And what I hope as an air gunner is that it drives competition and development within the entirety of the industry. I'm super happy with what we've produced. It's an amazing air gun. What I hope is that other amazing air guns are out there and we continue to push each other forward, sharpening our swords, if you will, on each other in competition, because that's what drives the industry forward. That's what gets us better air guns in the 50-yard range and the 25-yard range, because all of that technology, all that development trickles back to the people or for the people who aren't interested in competition shooting, who are doing pest control, who like just plinking in their backyard or at their club. Those kinds of things get better because on the competition end, we're pushed to do more and more and develop, kind of the next great thing. If you want to know my opinion of what the current great thing is, it's this 17-pound beast right here. The look of this new rail system, how strong and rigid it is, how the air handling has been improved for more precise, more efficient shooting. All the hours of work, not just on the bench, but in computer modeling programs and standing in front of a mill or a lathe, turning down parts so that guys like me can do experimentation. All of that stuff has led to a point where I feel, this is absolutely the peak of 2025 airgun technology from a mechanical valve standpoint. I'm not trying to take anything away from any of the other manufacturers, because there's really some amazing air guns out there. But if you ask me what should I shoot in bench rest competition, it's the Red Panda. And you're right, I'm proud of this gun and what it's able to do. So if you've made it with me this far, which may only be 2 of you, I have no idea, but I hope you have either enjoyed or been informed by this video. My intent in getting this video ready for the relaunch of the 2025 Spec Red Panda was really to kind of give you the backstory of what went into getting this gun to where it is now. Between people with engineering experience, machining experience, competition shooting experience in multiple disciplines, this has been a real team labor of love, and I'm just happy every day that I've had an opportunity to be a part of it. I've been on the kind of outside of some product launches in the past, but never really this fully immersed in it. And I will tell you, I am learning something every single day in being a part of this. I feel like I've had this story rattling in my head for long enough that now that I can finally let some of it out, because we haven't talked about any of these technical specs changes, any of that stuff. I feel like sometimes as I talk about it, it's really easy for me to lose my position in what I'm trying to say and miss things. So I'm just going to run quick front to back features of the Red Panda. So out front, you have M18x1 barrel threads directly on the barrel. You've got 200 cc's of plenum and 200 cc's of high pressure air in the tanks under the barrel. You have this Batman themed, inspired, I shouldn't say inspired. I just think if Batman was going to put an air gun on the front of the Batmobile, he might use this rail. You've got Arca on the bottom, you've got M-LOK along the sides, Picatinny out front, 30 MOA scope rail in the middle. You've got an adjustable cheek piece. You've got another 500 cc's of air in the back in the form of these two tanks. You've got an internal regulator that can be adjusted. Not the easiest thing in the world to adjust, but it can be adjusted. It also can be like opened up all the way basically to bypass it. And over on the Donnie FL site, we have a video that describes that process. So if you ever need to do anything there, we do have that support for you. You have tool-free adjustments to move this butt pad up and down. There are thumb wheels there. There are also thumb wheels that allow you to extend length of pull on the butt pad. You have a bag rider on the bottom. Coming in a little bit closer, you have the rear regulator, the internally adjusted regulator gauge, as well as tank pressure. Let me bring you in on this. You have a transfer port adjuster right here by my pinky finger. The screw to tighten that is tool-free and located on the opposite side, just above where we have the externally adjustable regulator gauge. Like I said before, you have some adjustment on the trigger. It is a side lever cocking air gun. It has an AR-15 compatible grip. You have your hammer spring adjustment, call it viewing window right there, and the hammer spring adjuster is rotary right here. I think that pretty much covers everything that you might want or need to know on this air gun. And so with that, I thank you for hanging out, and until the next video, everybody, shoot safe, shoot straight, and we'll see you around.
you.